And we really, really struggled because we were now conditional buyers, because we were conditional on the sale of our house. And the market was really hot when we were looking. Houses were selling so quick. Sellers didn't want a conditional sale, they wanted unconditional buyers. And we weren't unconditional buyers.
And that's, I guess, a tip for those where it is a hot market is that the quicker you can get to an unconditional offer, the more likely you are to snap something up.
Welcome to Slice, Property Made Possible. We're a platform on a mission to reduce barriers to home ownership. This podcast is a safe space for our community to learn together and build the confidence required to start on their property journey. When you're ready to start, head along to slicetobuy.com and sign up for your free dashboard.
Welcome back to another episode of Slice Your Property podcast. Today we are joined by Emma Porritt. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited to hear more about your story and your experience. So how did you sort of get into your first home? What was that journey for you?
Yeah, so back in 2018, I met my partner, and at the time he was in the process of buying a house with a friend. And they were contracted to buy a house off the plans, a small little townhouse in Hobsonville that was currently being built. So about a year after we met, that house was finished and they moved in, they settled and they were living together. And about 6 months after that, I moved in, so this was the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
And about 4 months after that, the friend decided he wanted to sell. And we were put into the position of deciding what we wanted to do together, because now we had this opportunity that we could own together. Obviously, we'd only been living together for 4 months at this point, so it did feel like very quick, very rushed. But this was an opportunity we couldn't pass up. He did debate buying the house outright on his own. He could have done that, but it would have been a real stress
for him.
Yeah, it would have been really hard. He would have had to cut back, probably sell some of his investments and things like that. But yeah, so we went down this road of buying together. And very quickly we sort of learnt that, because we did originally look at should they put the house on the market and we buy something else and he buy something else. We quickly learned that houses are very expensive. Yeah. And this was such a good house and we could have bought it for under market value because it obviously would have been a private sale. Yeah. No real estate agents, no bidding, nothing like that.
Don't have to go through all the stress of that either.
No, exactly. We were already living in it. There was no moving involved. So we decided that although it was very quick and we would have loved to have done it in our own time, we had to decide very quickly that we were going to buy this together, otherwise the house was going to go on the market and we were going to lose it.
Yeah. Was that what was in their agreement? Was it that they would sell if they basically couldn't come to some other agreement, that they would put it on the market and the market would close it out?
Yeah, so if one of them decided that they wanted to sell, they could give a 7 days notice. And
wow, that's a really short notice period.
And the other one would have to decide if they wanted to buy them out, or if they didn't, it would then go on the market.
Yeah. So did they have that legal agreement in place?
Yeah, they went to the lawyers and they got a contract.
Interesting, because 7 days is a really small term, though. That's probably the smallest I've heard of. Even when you have the agreement, I guess, making sure that you think about what that actually looks like. But I'm guessing that the friend that your partner co-purchased with, that there was some lenience there.
Yeah, he gave him a heads up originally, hey, by the way, I'm looking. And then he did eventually give us the hard 7 days. You've got to decide. Yeah. So in that window, that's when we had to have those conversations of look, where is this relationship going? What are we going to do? Are we going to buy a house together? Yeah.
And was that an emotional decision for you, or was it a mixture of two? Because I purchased with my partner. I don't know if you've heard me talk about that, but after knowing each other for 3 months, so not living together either. God. Yeah. So at the total other end, even worse, I guess. But it was very much a financial decision. That's the way that we looked at it. For you guys, was it a bit of both, or where were you at in that kind of thinking?
It was a little bit of both. I think we did go into it being look, we probably just have to look at it like a business transaction almost, very financial, he wanted to keep his house. I would have loved to have bought a house. Yeah. We'll do it together and we'll sort it out in a way that kind of looks more like a contractual thing, more what he did with his friend. Everything was very separate and everything was very split. Yeah. But of course, I wanted to take that next step with him in our relationship. So I was so excited.
Nervous. And then of course there is, even it's almost even more important that you have the pieces in place so that you don't hurt yourself. Like,
No,
because it can be
exactly.
hard enough going through a breakup if that should be, the outcome, that
No, exactly.
you don't want to have the financial stress and everything else on top of that.
No, so we kept things, very, very separate. We had separate mortgage accounts that we knew that we were looking after. But going through that process, doing the math, we quickly figured out that although we originally wanted to do 50-50, it would have been a real struggle for me to do that just with the mortgage repayments. So then we had to have the conversation about, like, do we do an equal share split?
Yeah.
And we went down the road of, do we do 60-40? Because, of course, he already owned the house, so he had equity in the house.
Yeah.
He had been paying off the mortgage for a year.
You'd
so
already kind of been comfortable with that.
Yeah, he
and what
was
it looked
really
like.
comfortable with it. He was earning more than me at the time. So then I had this, like, dilemma being like, do I take 40% or do I try and stretch myself to 50%? And having those conversations with him, we eventually decided that, I was going to take the 40%, even though my pride took, like, a little bit of a hit. And I was worried about other people would think, being like, oh, she only owns, like, 40% of it.
Oh, but you don't even really talk about that. Like, I own a lesser amount of the property I own with my partner.
Oh, yeah.
I purchased a property beforehand, so I was like stretching either way, and I'm incredibly leveraged. Like, I owe about 1.2 million in debt across the two properties. So for me, I could have stretched, but you have to, like, take into consideration your circumstances. How much are you earning? How comfortable is that going to be? You don't want to add stress to the relationship as well by not being able to front up with the agreed share. So the best thing you can do is probably not bite off something more than you can chew.
No, it's about comfort, and it's about, like, the risk, like, how much risk was I willing to take on when I didn't actually have to take on that much risk, because he could have covered that extra 20% that I didn't have.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not like that means you're still on the ladder. Like,
no, I was 22 at the time, so I don't know why I was, like, so
Yeah.
worried about being like, oh, people are going to think I didn't try hard enough, I didn't deserve it. But it's like,
no,
well.
no. I mean, you should see on social media the amount of commentary we get on some of our discussions, and we are having a lot of these discussions with people in their 20s because we're trying to, I guess, bring visibility to the way that people are getting in, which a lot of the time is not by themselves and is with a partner, and maybe that partner does have more to contribute, or maybe someone's parents is contributing an amount. So it does become really important that you have those discussions, and I think that's really wise of you to say, actually, I think this is what's going to be comfortable for me, because you don't want to add unnecessary pressure to the financials when you're already in the earlier stages of a relationship anyway. How long had you been together all up?
At that point, we'd been together for about 2 years.
Oh, yeah. So that's a decent amount. And so how did that work out in the end in terms of value? Because I think that's a really interesting one when you think, well, it's not necessarily going on the market, so it's not going for whatever it goes for at auction or whatever the offer might be from multiple parties. Did you get a valuation? How did you manage that?
Yeah, they did get a valuation done. I think they each independently got one done. Yeah. And then we based our, like, offer off of that, because of course only half of the house was being sold. It was a partial sale.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't on the market and we didn't have a real estate agent, there was no competition. We got it for under market value, which was great.
Yeah, and that's ideal. And do you know what that property is worth now as well, in terms of, has it increased in value?
It did increase because we did sell it.
Oh, right.
So it went up quite a bit actually, and then since then it would have come back down, but it'll still be higher than what
it was originally. Yeah. So you sold that property how long after?
So we were living in it for a year, and we started to look, and it took us a year to find another place. Okay. And then that's when we sold it, and obviously then moved into our new place.
Yeah. So that second property that you purchased, what was the intent around that? Was it just another step above what you were hoping to live in? Yeah, what was the logic there?
Yeah, so it was a townhouse, but it wasn't even, like, ground level entry. We had to go, like, up a flight of stairs, and then it was, like, 2 levels, so there wasn't even really an outside. And we'd gone through all of the lockdowns in that house, and we just wanted some more space. I wanted a garden. I wanted some outdoors. My partner wanted a lawn. We wanted to get an animal and we just didn't feel like we could get one in a townhouse.
Did you get an animal?
We did.
Yes. What did you get?
We got-
Sorry, I'm like going to be we'll come back to this.
We got a little kitten.
Oh,
yeah, so
bless.
we've had her for about just over a year now. Yeah, so
Love that.
She loves it. And
I
we
want a
love her.
puppy and I want a kitten, and I'm like trying to work out which I could have of both. Like maybe a sausage dog or a cocker spaniel and a rag doll.
Oh, that would be cute.
Very
That would be
cute, hey? But we have the property, but we've got a few other priorities. And they're not the cheapest dogs in particular. When I was looking at sausage dogs, you're looking at $4,000 or something
Ooh,
like that.
jeez.
You're like a quarter
Yeah.
of a way there to a house if you co-own.
God.
That's what I should do, like a social post that's like how many sausage dogs it takes to get a deposit for a home.
Yes, that would be good. Yeah.
But it's also really sad because obviously you want a sausage roll.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you did that jump, and I totally appreciate that. I moved back in lockdown when one of my friends was giving birth and was in my own kind of small apartment space. And yeah, it didn't take long to grow tired of that and kind of want to be out. And we're sort of surrounded by trees and have that garden experience. So I get what you were looking for there. And now that you've done that, like obviously with the equity that you took from the first home, you were able to put that into the next property. And then did you increase your spend, like in terms of what you're looking for in market? Like the second property, was that more expensive than the first?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was quite a bit more expensive. We're looking at like at least maybe 40% more, probably close to double. Yeah, not too far off. We did get quite a bit of like capital gains from the sale of the first place. So all of that went into the new place, and then we just increased our mortgage.
Yeah.
And that was about it. We actually didn't really need to put any additional capital into the house. I think we did a little bit, but not too much. We were able to sort of subsidise it, I guess, just with the mortgage. So that was really good. Re-looking at the numbers, my partner ended up taking on about 70% share of that house, and then I went down to about 30%. Just so we could make that big jump. Like percentage-wise, it's a lower number because the house was so much more expensive.
But
like,
the amount of value,
is more.
30% of, 2 million is more than 40% of 500K. So it makes sense if that's how you guys have agreed to work through that, and especially if that's what you want to do in terms of living in your circumstances. And so in terms of that second journey, obviously very different to the first, where you were kind of able to do things on your own term. How did you find the buying process and looking for properties? What were some challenges that you experienced there?
It was so much harder. Yeah, because it wasn't before. It was a private sale. You just agreed amongst yourself. This time we were going in, we were competing against other people, and we really, really struggled because we were now conditional buyers, because we were conditional on the sale of our house. And the market was really hot when we were looking. Houses were selling so quick. Sellers didn't want a conditional sale, they wanted unconditional buyers. And we weren't unconditional buyers.
And that's, I guess, a tip for those where it is a hot market, is that the quicker you can get to an unconditional offer, the more likely you are to snap something up. And that does mean just getting really quick at your due diligence process, of getting that building report done when you know it's the right one, or reviewing the documents and getting quite methodical and through that. And the Slice platform, I don't know if you've checked that out, but we step people through exactly every activity they need to do through that process to help them kind of get more efficient with that process. But yeah, it's a big learning curve when you're doing it the first time, isn't it?
Oh, it's so tough. I really don't think we properly went through we did go through a buying process the first time, but it was like a trimmed down, like easier and harder version at the same time, whereas this was like a very traditional buy-sell experience, and it was tough out there. It was like the market was so hard for buyers at the time. Yeah.
What sort of advice would you have for first home buyers that are going through that process? The advice sounds like go through a private negotiation.
Yeah, if you can. Buy private, that is quite a lot easier. Do your due diligence, as you said. That's really important. I mean, you just don't know what's hiding under the floorboards. I mean, we saw some houses where the bathroom wasn't even, consented.
Yeah.
So that stuff is really important. Getting unconditional quickly is good. Obviously, making sure you're pre-approved and everything like that. I mean, those are the main things. It's just do the work.
Yeah.
Get in there, research.
And part of that is, I guess, people don't know what that work is.
Oh, no, it's really tough.
Yeah, that's where we're definitely trying to help through, obviously, this podcast, but also the software, and it's almost like project management tooling to actually say, this is what you're meant to be doing. Yeah, because I guess that's one of the challenges that I had, is that no one really gave you those steps or outlined exactly what it was that you had to do. You just heard from different parties about the different things and different terminologies, and even for someone that has experience in law and in finance, you know, it wasn't a straight through process. What sort of advice would you have for first home buyers that are looking to get into the market?
I would say look at all of your options. Like, you can buy traditionally, but there are other ways you can do it. You can do it like how we did it, with like 2 people and having an unequal share. You can buy with a friend, you can buy with a partner, you can buy with your parents, your siblings. Like, look at all of your options. Look at, like, if you can do a lower deposit. Just, look at all of the options, because a traditional buy and sell is going to be really hard for first home buyers. It's just really hard to just grind your way there. So just, have a look at everything, look at all of your options, talk to people, see how they did it. It's just, I think that's really important.
And from a finance perspective, talking about how, it's really hard to grind your way there without sort of some of those alternative options, did you find it easier to get that money together and work that out the second time, having had the first property that you co-purchased?
Yeah, it was a lot easier. All the money was already wrapped up into the house. It was almost just felt like it was just sitting there waiting for us to move to the next place. What made it a lot easier for me the first time was that I didn't have to pay a deposit. Because my partner obviously already owned a house. He already had equity in the house, so I didn't have to put any, or the bank didn't require me to put anything in there.
Yeah.
But so it was a lot easier the second time coming, like when that money was already pretty much just sitting there waiting for us, and then we just had to increase our mortgage to make up the difference.
Yeah, amazing. And where did you, I don't think I asked, but where did you buy each of those properties?
So Hobsonville was Hobsonville Point was the first one, and then we moved out to QMU. So a little bit further out, a little bit more space.
Yeah, and I think that's, I know exactly where you would be in that Hobsonville area, and that's a very valid sort of entry point for first home buyers. And Kumu's beautiful too. I mean, that is, I guess, what do you do for work as well? Let's talk about that, because are you able to, how do you find the commute and stuff coming in from Kumu?
The commute is tough. It's challenging. I do work in the city.
Yeah.
I'm an event coordinator, and I do a lot of like conferences and things like that. So I'm in the office like most days. Yeah, the commute's tough. My partner currently drops me off at work because he has a company car, so he can sort of do that quite easily, and then he'll just go to work. And then I end up busing home, which takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
My car got written off last year, actually, because before that I could like drive to the bus, park at the bus in, so it would make my commute a lot shorter.
Yeah.
But because of like all of our like costs and interest rates going up, we decided just to hold off rebuying a car and took some of that insurance payout and put it on the mortgage.
Do what you can. It's rob from Peter to pay Paul, really. I'm robbing my sausage dog at the moment to build a business. But yeah, you do have to think about, and that's funny. I think this has come up in another episode, but my car, like the engine blew up. And I haven't replaced it either, because it's just not really the right time for us to be investing in, I mean, if I buy a car now, I'm probably going to want a different one in 2 years too. Like, who knows? So, I mean, it does become an interesting negotiation between all of the different assets that you need. And, of course, a car doesn't generally, although over COVID, they did start to kind of hold their value a bit more, which is not great for us. So we've been waiting for some cheapies. But it probably would have been the worst time to buy a car, actually, when both of us had car issues. So, and you're not, as you say, you're not making money from that. So it's, if you can get away with busing wherever possible, it's ideal.
We're making do. It's a little painful.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking about how much money I'm saving, not paying my insurance, not paying for petrol, and you just got to think about that.
Yeah, got to think about the positives, right? Yeah. And I think that's really refreshing as well, to just be like, oh yeah, by the way, we have managed to buy property, but I don't have a car, because so many people would be like, oh, I need a car though.
Yeah.
And I guess it's not without sacrifices when you do kind of move in on your wealth journey and start trying to build positive assets that grow in wealth over time, as opposed to a car that'll probably blow up on you. Yeah. It's like heavy resentment over here.
After someone hits your car and writes it off.
Yeah, European beat up. And you said your partner has a company car as well. What does he do for a living?
He's an engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't quite keep up with that.
So is mine.
Oh, yours.
Yeah, cut for losers. No,
yeah.
It's an interesting industry. Yeah, it's a very detail orientated and fascinating industry. I think housing is obviously my big passion, But infrastructure is one of those, like, if you think of the key industries that impact our economy, infrastructure is the other one, and there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, my partner works in like water infrastructure, and water's not going out of fashion anytime soon. So
No, we're made up of 90% of it or something like that. In terms of, we spoke a little bit about advice you would give to home buyers. What advice would you give to younger Emma when you were in your early 20s and considering this journey and what that might look like for you?
I would tell myself not to stress so much. I stressed about it, and I really worried about what other people would think.
Yeah.
I put off telling people that I was buying a house just because I was really worried about some of maybe like the backlash of it all, being like, well, you're only 22, you shouldn't be buying a house. I can't buy a house, why are you buying a house?
Tall poppy.
So I think there was a lot of that, and there was some insecurity around, like, I got in because my partner owned the house. So there was a little bit of that, or like feeling like I didn't deserve it or I didn't earn it.
Yeah, people will always find a way to take your hard work and your achievements away from you, but you just gotta, I guess care less is sort of what you're saying. Worry less about.
Worry less, yeah.
Yeah, easier said than done.
It is. No, it is.
But I
Absolutely
definitely appreciate the sentiment, and I think much the same. It's super hard because this whole podcast and the majority of the episodes, we canvass people that are getting support, are leveraging opportunities available to them, whether that's their partner, their parents, their friend, their sibling. But by doing that, you're also making it seem more accessible in a way, because imagine if we were just sitting here saying we did it all by ourselves, I didn't need help, like, why can't you do it? You should have been able to save a 20% deposit, like, that's not the narrative we're trying to share at all. So it's ironic because we get backlash for talking about, oh, well, all of those people have had help. That's literally what we're trying to say on this podcast, is that, and by the way, 99.9% of people are leveraging opportunities available to them, are working with other people to get in. And that does not mean, it doesn't negate the hard work that it takes to actually make sacrifices, catch the bus, not replace your car, like whatever your sacrifices might be. It doesn't negate that hard work, but it actually creates some transparency around how people are actually getting on the ladder. And so people shouldn't be, judging for that. No. They should be going, oh, okay, hang on, if everyone else is buying property with someone else, then who's my person? Or what's my government scheme? Or what's available for me? Maybe start questioning what your opportunities are, rather than resenting those people that have identified those opportunities. Yep. But that is pretty much tall poppy syndrome. I went on a podcast the other day for it, and it was, really, I was talking to a New Zealand rower, Grace Lewis runs and just talking about our different experiences, and in housing in particular, it's a huge one. Problem. People don't feel comfortable saying, hey, yeah, I have done that. Or you think that just because your partner put up the deposit, you haven't worked hard to service the mortgage. Like, you've obviously had to make repayments, you've had to forego other opportunities. So there's clearly hard work in that, and we should be celebrating that. So good work. You got on the ladder when you were 22, was it? Yeah. That is so young. So those opportunities do exist, and it should be congratulated.
Yeah, I think it's unrealistic to expect people or everyone to try and get on the ladder without any help, without anybody else. I just don't think that's what is actually happening.
Totally. And I'm not saying privilege doesn't exist. I mean, you're born in New Zealand. You get to, you get a decent education, you get all of these things. But that doesn't mean that there isn't an element of hard work involved in that, and I think it's really just about everyone identifying what their opportunities are and how they can get in. So I think, it's good. That's great advice to give for your younger self, and I think probably it's still valid today, because I feel I could take that advice on board myself and try to worry less. And I know Hannah, our content creator, struggles with that too sometimes, because she's trying to share her experience, and it always comes with a degree of backlash. But
yeah, it's tough. It is tough.
Yeah. And what about your partner? How did he feel about that experience as well? Did he, get feedback from his parents? Was he worried about the social stigma around potentially, purchasing with you at that stage? Or
He's always been a big property person. He's like, from a young age, he started saving for a house. And as soon as he found someone he could buy a house with, which was his friend, he was right in there. He's always been very comfortable with like the house buying process and buying a house. I don't think he experienced the same kind of like guilt,
Anxiety
I
or
guess.
guilt or
That like I seem to get. I do think the like whole I don't deserve this like thing can happen with women a lot more than it can happen with men. I think so that was some of it. When we bought together, I think he was maybe a little bit more nervous than me, just because he obviously had fronted up a lot of that, and I think he was a little bit like, oh, I just want to try and protect myself and my asset
Make
that
sure
I
this
worked
is
so
fair,
hard for.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, which was completely understandable. And I did whatever I could to sort of alleviate any of his anxieties around that. But yeah, no, it was a really good experience. He is very detail orientated, so it was great having him through that whole process, especially because he had obviously bought the house
The
before.
first time, yeah.
So he ended up, I guess, buying his first house twice.
Yeah.
So he was very experienced. So he was like a rock during this whole like situation for me. He really walked me through the whole process, which was great.
And do you feel like that brought you closer together as well?
Definitely.
And what about the conversations around finances? And, you know, because traditionally after a period of time, you technically, if you don't have a contracting out agreement or you don't have an alternative, I guess, structure, it's 50-50 after a period of time. And it's not necessarily X years. The courts actually can decide based on the nature of your relationship and things like that. So, yeah, I guess, how do you feel about having had those financial conversations, agreeing to different contributions and benefits?
Yeah, so we had been very used to talking about finances even before we bought the house. We did get a contracting out agreement written up before I actually moved in, just so he could protect his assets. That agreement never ended up getting signed because we went into lockdown and then we kind of forgot about it. And then a few months later, obviously, I ended up buying the house, which made the contract like null and void anyway. And we never ended up revisiting it. But that was really important that I wanted him to protect his asset just in case anything did happen. But you do get very used to the whole like, what if you break up, this is what's going to happen. Because we had those conversations with the lawyer anyway. She walked us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so obviously you're already comfortable to some degree. What advice would you have for other people that might need to broach that financial topic, or if they're contributing different amounts, how they might be able to, you know, own that conversation and have that, open that door with their partner?
Yeah, I think if one of you is more comfortable having that conversation than the other, I think you need to be the one that's like being open about it and being really transparent and honest, so that they know that they can also come to you. And also just creating a judgment-free zone. Like, no one wants to be judged when it comes to their finances. Someone might be insecure about how much they like earn or are able to contribute. So just making sure that nobody's being judged. Everyone's open to, you know, say how they feel and tell the truth and everything like that. So I think just open, honest, transparent communication is probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, so just kind of premising the whole conversation, if you're going to bring this up, or saying, hey, I think we're going to, you know, we're looking at buying a house, I think we need to talk a little bit more about what we're going to contribute. Can we just have a really safe and open conversation and know that it's free from judgment? Actually, like, if you're the one that's bringing up that conversation, setting that space up so that you can have sort of a comfortable
it's just a safe place for you guys to talk. Me and my partner were also very good about like having spreadsheets, and all of our finance would be on the spreadsheet and everyone could access whatever they, you know, if they needed something they could have a look at it. We felt comfortable asking each other questions about our finances or about their finances. So just making a really comfortable space that you can just say what you want and you can ask questions, and that's okay.
Yeah, so framing that up, I guess, is probably a great place to start. Another thing that we have had a few of our followers do is actually just send a link to one of the relevant episodes that talks about contracting out agreements or things like that, because we provide them on the platform for fixed fees. And there is the tool, of course, on slicetobuy.com as well, which takes you through a decision analysis. So as you say, how many days notice before one party can sell the property, or what happens if we need to sell, how are we sharing proceeds, what if someone moves out, how are we managing living arrangements, all of those kind of points are in the technology. But I think before you even kind of dive in and start exploring that together, what you've said there around creating that space where there is no judgment and you're having an open conversation is really, great. I think a great place to start. Cool. And the last question I have for you today is, if your place in Kumeu had a doorbell and that doorbell was playing a song, what song would it be playing?
Oh my gosh. I think, do you know the one where it's like, Welcome to my house.
I
I can't remember
can't
how it
remember
goes.
the lyrics, but I exactly know
I think
the
it's
song.
that one. I think it's like Flow Rider or something like that.
Yeah,
That one.
love
would
that.
Be, that would be
Very
the one.
relevant too, you know.
I think so. I
And
think so.
welcoming, you know.
Yeah, no,
I feel
come
like
in.
I could walk into that house and start talking about my finances with you, Emma.
Judgment-free zone.
Yes, judgment-free house in Kumeu. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing to hear about your experience, and yeah, maybe we'll have your partner on an
my
episode
gosh.
next.
I think he would love that. Actually, he loves talking money. He loves talking houses.
Let's
He
get him
loves
in,
it,
and
loves
then
it.
we'll ask him like how he really felt.
Yeah, exactly. You get his side of it because it'll probably be completely different.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome to Slice, property made possible. We're a platform on a mission to reduce barriers to home ownership. This podcast is a safe space for our community to learn together and build the confidence required to start on their property journey. When you're ready to start, head along to slicetobuy.com and sign up for your free dashboard.